And welcome back to the Andrew Gosser Show right here on 103.9 WYAB. Today is Thursday, the 18th of December, 2025. And if doing math in public is always dangerous, but I do believe that makes us 7 days away from the second greatest day of the year, Christmas Day. We love that. And if you want to be a part of the program today, it's easy. 601 879 0002. The text line is always open, and we're going to talk about that. 601 879 5060. The stream is working, everybody. We're streaming on Rumble. We're streaming on X. We're streaming on YouTube, and we are streaming at WYAB.com. We appreciate everybody who's tuning in over on the stream, and we appreciate everybody who tunes into WYAB 103.9. Really appreciate that. If you're on X, you're definitely going to want to follow me. We've got a lot of good stuff coming up today, and all the stories that we use, I always try to tweet it out. It's just Andrew Gosser, AndrewGasser. Follow me. That would be great. The mission here at the show is standard. We're here to equip the saints. Who are the saints? Y'all are the saints. And this is what's going to drive the entire show today. Sometimes things just hit you and you're just like, wow. The discerning heart seeks knowledge, but the mouths of fools feed on folly. And, it's been one of the things that I've told my kids, anybody who would listen to me, you are what you consume. We used to say you are what you eat, but you are what you consume too. Do you spend time reading about your job? Do you spend time reading about sports? Do you spend time reading about God? Do you spend time watching things about politics? Do you spend time doing things? Perhaps it's a favorite hobby of yours. Perhaps you're spending time doing that. But the bottom line is that as we go further and further down this road, there's more and more out there to consume, to the point to where there's absolutely no way you can know it all. There's none. And I'm sitting here looking at some of the stories that I have not talked about in the last week. And it wasn't that I didn't want to talk about them. It's just that there was too much other stuff going on. Way too much other stuff going on. And the thing about it is that what is happening with all this fake news out there, and the fake news can be on both sides of the aisle. Republicans, let's not kid ourselves. There's a lot of fake news out there coming from the quote unquote political right, just as much as there's a ton of fake news out there coming from the quote unquote political left. But this is a two-pronged strategy that is being employed to, number one, get everybody fired up. It doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on, or even if you're apolitical. There is just a goal to create and induce anger in the Western world. You can say Europe, you can say United States, you can say Mississippi. We are sitting here looking at the United States ripping itself apart. In the Civil War, it was the North versus the South. In what could potentially be the next Civil War, it's the blue versus the red, or the red versus the blue. Take it how you want to say it. And there's all sorts of different tools that they're using. But what really is going to be used against both sides, but I think for me personally, from my personal perspective, I think it hurts the right more, is that they are going to try to get you to say something that isn't true. You're gonna post something in anger, you're gonna say something in person that you genuinely think is legitimate. You genuinely think that, "Hey, this is the way we're supposed to go," but it's not. And with this, I got a great this guy, he texts me so much stuff, and some of it I use, some of it I don't. But ladies and gentlemen, fact check yourself, because if you don't, you're gonna put something out there one time. In this world, there is no such thing as forgiveness. Clay had a great testimony yesterday. If you didn't hear it, you should probably go back and listen to it. It's incredible. But there it is no true forgiveness. Now, this doesn't mean that you go out there and just act the fool and then beg for forgiveness. We'll talk about the Goon Squad guy. But I was sent a story, and it really kinda fired me up, not only because, of my faith, but because I've actually been to Lebanon. Crazy story, happened back in 1994. USS America pulled in to Haifa, and we had a Lebanese American, and, we just did a madness. We weren't supposed to go, but it was a chance to see it, and it was cool, and I'm glad I never got in trouble, but oh my goodness. So, there is this story going around, and it's talking about how the Israelis bombed Simon Peter's mausoleum in Lebanon. And I read it and I got fired up. I was like doing all this stuff, how I was going to prepare it all and doing all the stuff that I needed to do to bring this story to you. And then I started fact checking it. And what I found out was that, yes, that was the name of somebody named Simon Peter, but it wasn't the Simon Peter we are all thinking of. If you go to the Vatican, you will see they have a whole thing. That is where Simon Peter was entombed. And I am not making excuses for what Israel's doing. The more I spend time praying and going down this road, the more I think um, that there's real issues there. And, and you know what? It could have been an Israeli attack. It might not have been. I don't know. But what I do know is that that story created not just a reaction in me, but my wife, who has incredible discernment, and two of my friends, who I can genuinely call them up and ask them anything, and they will give me the no kidding view on it. And they won't hold no punches. Andy, you're wrong on this, and they will just lay the smackdown per se. But there are so many things going on, and all it takes is this one story for me to go research. And fellas, I spent probably good 35, 40 minutes of show prep last night, really digging into it. And I'm not upset with it, but I feel like it's almost being used as a tool for me to explain to all of you. And perhaps some of us Gen Xers already know this, and we're really good about what we talk about and post about. But realize there is a very active movement out there to anger you, whether you are pro-Israel, anti-Palestine, and or pro-Palestine, anti-Israel, pro-Palestine, or you could be one of those people who are anti-Palestine and questioning Israel. You could be one of those folks. And if you're going to go out there and start talking about it, you better have the receipts, and you better make sure that you can back it up, because when you go out there, and if I go out there and start talking about how Israel just bombed the heck out of this, or St. Peter's Mausoleum, my goodness, I'm gonna be in a world of hurt, a world of hurt. And isn't this just good sense? It's not necessarily, you can trace it back to the Bible, but you can sit there and say, "This makes sense." Make sure we don't go out there and say something, and our kids need to learn that too, because they are not only growing up in the digital age, they are growing up in the AI age, and the things that they're doing, the things that are happening to those kids, whew, they're gonna have a tough time moving forward. And so some of the things I wanna talk about with the information overload, we're gonna talk about the act that is being actually used to go after these drug dealers who are at the high seas. Doesn't matter whether they're bringing in fentanyl, coke, marijuana, meth, whatever it is that they're bringing over. If they're at sea, there's different rules from that, and you are gonna be absolutely astounded, my friends, when you hear some of the people who voted for it. And we are gonna talk about the big, beautiful bill and how some of the tax cuts that have been federally removed are now being reinstated by blue states. I didn't This is a week old. I didn't even see it. I feel that I spend a very good amount of my awoke time while I'm awake. I'm not woke, but awake, studying, making sure I've got information for the show. And this did not come up in my RSS feed, my algorithm, my Citizen Free Press. I didn't get it anywhere. I didn't see it. But when you hear about what these blue states are doing, and I'll tell you what, when I was a county board member or county supervisor or a highway commissioner, we would actually cut taxes, and we would watch other agencies raise their rates just because we were cutting ours. It was terrible. Look, you are listening to the Andrew Gosser Show on 103.9 WYAB. We're going to take our first break. We will be right back. And we are back here at the Andrew Gosser Show. And as promised, we were talking about all the crazy stories with the information overload. Blue states are blocking no tax on tips and other tax cutting measures that were in the one big beautiful bill. We can all agree that there is a lot of things wrong with the big beautiful bill. Honestly, I'm just being truthful with you. If I had to vote, I would have voted for it, but there is a lot of hot garbage in that bill, and we need to go back and address that moving forward. And, we're already up against another government shutdown. That's already coming. This is coming from Fox News, but this is last week. How did I miss this? And if you missed it, I'd like to know. No one texted it to me, so not only did my algorithms not see this, but there are people out there who send me stories who missed this too, and this is truly critical, because this is gonna show you, some of you people, why I'm so high on Mississippi despite all of the stuff that we've got going on. Scott Bassett blasts Democrat-led states for blocking Trump tax relief. Bassett argued that states such as Colorado, New York, and Illinois, as well as the District of Columbia, are deliberately blocking their own residents from receiving tax relief provided under the law. It's a blatant act of political obstructionism. And this is what they're doing. So the federal government is not going to tax seniors who get their Social Security. It's a little bit of a bump. That's great. They're going to go ahead and make sure that service workers no longer have to pay taxes on their tips. And what the states, specifically the blue states, are doing, "Hey, you're not going to go ahead. We will just implement that revenue. We're going to go ahead and the federal government gave a tax cut, and now we will take that and it'll benefit our states." And the blue states are upside down. And we've talked about how Chicago is losing all their businesses. The Chicago Bears are actually thinking about moving to Northwest Indiana. That is just insane. Because Cook County can't get their stuff together, they actually might move to Northwest Indiana. My gosh. It wouldn't be the first time, though. Didn't the Jets and the Giants move to New Jersey? Isn't there a new stadium in New Jersey? I somehow thought about that. But by denying their residents access to these important tax cuts, these governors and legislators are forcing hardworking Americans to shoulder higher state tax burdens, robbing them of the relief they deserve. And I'm just here thinking, we would do this at the local government inside our county, and we would just watch all these local municipalities and stuff just raise taxes. It's insane, and not that it's going to happen here in Mississippi, but it just goes to show you that trying to keep taxes low, trying to have a more fiscally conservative spending policy is going to do you a world of good. And next year, you are going to see the day of reckoning in these blue states. They just have so much debt. They spend so much, and they refuse to cut spending. They just keep raising, 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 and it's horrible. It's horrible. Another story that came across my feed from that was brought to my attention from last week. How many people know of HR 5484, the Anti-Drug Abuse Act of 1986. Do you know what that act does? That act allows the US government and the US military to go after drug runners on the open seas. It's been there. It's been there since 1986. And this was under a Democrat-led Congress, the 99th Congress. And I'm looking at some of these names. In 1986, I was in the 8th grade. 8th grade, the first part of the year, freshman in high school. And I'm looking at some of these Congress critters, and I actually knew them. John Dingell of Michigan. Got to meet him. Uh, you know, uh, man, that must have been 2008. Nice guy, would slit your throat politically, though, as he's shaking your hand. Other people. Chuck Schumer. Congressman Chuck Schumer co-sponsored this bill. And now he is out there ranting and raving about what the US government is doing when he allowed it to happen. When he allowed it to happen. Dick Durbin, he was in the House then. Guess what? He voted for it. Just insane people who and these are like people who are not just voting for it, but co-sponsoring it. Some people say that Dick Cheney co-sponsored it. That's not true. I do believe he voted for it. But here's the other part about this. When I was actually searching the interwebs trying to pull this up, it was, like, incredibly difficult to find. For those people who listened to Rush back in the day, Tom Lantos from California, remember that name? Absolutely. I'm trying to see real quickly here if there's any other co-sponsors who, actually supported this that would be memorable to some of us who were back in the day. Oh, Harry Reid. Some people might call him dingy. Not me, though. Trying to see if there's any other good ones here. I don't see any, but this is the kind of stuff that we're having to deal with. My daughter took her US history exam yesterday. And I I need to ask her this question because it was asked of me. But I thought that my US history class taught by Mr. Hettinger was pretty good. I don't ever remember them talking about how the United States for over the first half of its life didn't have an income tax. And it wasn't till I believe it's the 15th Amendment that instituted the income tax that we started having these problems. And of course, it started off really low, 2%. And now look at it. We've completely built a society that is dependent on its government. Andy, where did the United States get all its income from back in the day? Tariffs. It made us strong. And tariffs actually work. But if we don't have a society that even understands our history of how we use tariffs, what makes you think that they're going to figure it out today? We've got Supreme Court justices who don't know what a woman is. We've got congressmen who don't even understand the basic principles of the Constitution that they're swearing to uphold and defend. And then there's the rest of us, the taxpayers, the ones on the front line really getting screwed over by this taxing system. and these big corporations continue to rake in cash. We look at our congressmen who are making themselves incredibly rich by voting on legislation, realizing what's coming down the pipe and loading the boat on stock. It's it's terrible. But again, we shouldn't be surprised, but we need to make sure that we are aware of this. Brother Rick, give me the silver report. You are listening to the Andrew Gosser Show right here on 103.9 WYAB. We will be right back. Oh, yeah. You are listening to the Andrew Gosser Show right here on 103.9. Rick is pretty awesome. Silver is now at $66.25. It hit $67 yesterday. We've been tracking this on the show, and when you have precious metals going up like this, something crazy is about to happen. And I think we started tracking this, Rick, when it was like at 51. My goodness gracious, lovable me. My goodness gracious, lovable me. I did find a few more people who supported this bill back in 1986. Representative John McCain, James Sensenbrenner, if you remember him, he was a big, just being truthful, he was kind of like a blowhard. Jim Trafficant, I think he went to jail for a while. I mean, Henry Waxman. Do you remember Henry Waxman? All these big time Democrats back in the day were going after this. Rick sent in a text. When we started talking about silver, it was at $35 on this show. Wow. That's pretty good investment. Not giving any advice. I'm just saying you getting that kind of a return on that. Let's see here what's going on. Few other stories that are starting to be going around. Another death threat for a Turning Point USA chapter at an Illinois Christian college. And this is at Olivet Nazarene University, just happens to be where the Bears hold some of their training camps. The guy had to actually leave campus. And the thing about it is they have receipts. I'm going to find you in Chapman, slit your throat in your sleep if you keep posting racist stuff like that. Please post your and save for Charlie Kirk one more time. This is just mainstream TDS. It is out there. And if you are not watching out for yourself and looking after your friends and family, I'm telling you, bad things are going to end up happening. And we all need to be vigilant and aware. I'm going to save Dan Bongino and Trump's speech for next hour. But I did want to talk about what's happening in New York. And it's a big deal because they are about to legalize assisted suicide. And of course, the mainstream media, they've got this picture of this old, I can't tell if it's probably, I don't know, can't tell. But it's an older person holding a younger person's hand. You don't see any faces. And they started off like this. 2.5 centuries ago, our founding fathers established a vision for a country based on limited government and broad individual rights that together protect the rights of speech, worship, privacy, and bodily autonomy. Proudly, New York has long led the fight championing the rights of individuals, from civil rights to labor rights, LGBTQ rights, women's rights, and reproductive rights. In this true spirit of the country, government has a responsibility to protect, not interfere with an individual's deeply personal decisions. And it just goes on and on. And this is from the Times-Union. This is the original story that broke it. And if you want to check it out, it's on the X. But this just, again, it is a story that talks about how they're manipulating what our founding fathers actually gave us. They're not talking about why the country was formed. And that's why, we talked about Mississippi getting rid of the U.S. history test. This would be a great study to go after it. And of course, Governor Hochul, she is incredibly rabidly leftist, and New York is losing so many people. They talk about the brain drain leaving Mississippi. They don't talk about the wealthy leaving New York, Illinois, California. They are coming here. I think they will change their voting habits. I was looking yesterday. Do you know Mississippi lost 6,000 people last year? 6,000 people left the state. You look at Illinois, I think they lost like 173,000. Illinois and California continue to just hemorrhage people. They're mostly going to Florida and Texas and Georgia, some to Tennessee. So that might be why you might see some of those states that are really conservative start to shift to the blue. But this is the kind of madness that we're dealing with all around the country. I want to make sure I've got everything here. This story forced me to go out and buy a lotto ticket. I'm very serious. I bought a lotto ticket. Kamala Harris, Democrats very much stuck in the past. And I was like, holy smokes. Kamala Harris stated that the Democrat Party is very much stuck in the past during an interview. She criticized the party for a lack of authentic messaging that resonates with voters. 70% of voters believe the Democrats are out of touch with major concerns like immigration and crime. I agree with that. And I have not had my man on the show in a little bit, but we do have our friend Harry Enton, and this is going to completely bring this home. And if you didn't know
Democrats
this,
in the minds of the American public are lower than the Dead Sea. What are we talking about here? Well, let's take a look.
Lower than the Dead Sea. That's pretty low.
The net approval rating for Democrats in Congress. You said it, Kate Baldwin, the lowest ever. Look at this. Overall, they are 55 points underwater. Their approval rating is south of 20%. It's even worse when you look at independents. Look at this. Negative 61 points. That means that they're...
I thought we were going to lose the House next year. I thought you were, and we might. This is just one of those stories where the truth has to be broke through. They have to talk about it. They can't hide it. I have never in my life seen, I've never even seen Republicans like that. And they're pretty bad.
Their approval rating is 61 points lower than their disapproval rating. Quinnipiac has been polling this question for the better part of the 21st century. They have never found Democrats, at least those in Congress, in worse shape than they are right now.
That's independents and overall, but what about Democrats on Democrats?
Yeah, what about Democrats on Democrats?
So remember, everybody's pumping up the Democrats. We're going to go in and make this happen. They're going to go out and do great stuff.
A part of the reason overall is so low is independents are driving it low. But that's not the only reason it's so low. What about Democrats on Democrats? Democrats' net approval rating of congressional Democrats. I want you to keep in mind, they had never rated Democrats negatively until this year. And right now, what are we talking about? We're talking about a net approval rating from Democrats. This is Democrats on Democrats. Their approval rating is actually lower than the disapproval rating. And that is quite the drop from October. I think during the shutdown, there was a bit of a boost for Democrats, right? There was a rallying around the flag effect going on. But Democrats did not like how that shutdown turned out.
In October, the Democrats were up 22 points. And they were sitting, it was tough looking at some of this stuff because it was just hammer, the conservative point of view. But it just goes to show you that there are people out there who are paying attention to this and are starting to wake up. They're starting to figure this out. This is about to get insane. This is just great stuff.
They have returned against Democrats in Congress. And you mentioned Dan Goldman in that intro. One of the reasons that Dan Goldman is in trouble right now in a potential primary against Brad Ladner is because at this point, the Democratic base is so upset with Democrats. So even if Democrats take back Congress, don't be surprised if Dan Goldman ain't there because.
And you know what that says? Democrats all around the country are getting primaried. And you can have your definition of what a good Democrat is. We know about the blue dog Democrats. You cannot be a moderate in America right now, whether it's on the right or the left. If you're on the right, you're called a rhino. If you're on the left, I don't know if they still say dino or if they call it something else, but it is factually inaccurate. We're going to take our last commercial break of the first hour. I want to finish this, but we're going to do it on the other side of the break. You are listening to the Andrew Gosser Show right here on 103.9. We will be right back. Yeah. You are tuned into the Andrew Gosser Show right here on 103.9 WYAB. Man, the time flies here on the radio. Love the job. Love it. Let's
Because
get
of
back to this.
numbers like this
And
one.
this is quite a shift that you're looking at here. I mean, so this gets to the midterms, of course. What is this? What does this do to Democrats' chances of taking back majorities in Congress?
Yeah, we're talking about it. You mentioned it. What is this? 22-6. That's a 28-point decline falling through the floor. But of course, the question is, can Democrats still take back Congress, even with their ratings as low as this? The answer is yes, but in my mind, it's definitely hurting them. Why do I say that? Because take a look at the generic congressional ballot with a Republican president at this point. Look, Democrats are ahead, but they're only ahead by 4 points. Historically, that is quite weak. At this point in the 2017, 2018 cycle is more than double that at 10 points. The same back during George W. Bush's second term in office, where you saw, of course, the Democrats were also ahead by 10 points. So we're talking about a lead of less than half what we normally expect. And I think that's why at this point, there are a lot of Democrats who might be thinking, hey,
They're losing. And what Henry, I'm not saying he's being disingenuous, but what I am saying is that Democrats have a 7 to 8 point baked in lead to all this polling. If a Democrat is up in the generic poll by 4 or 5 points, they are in the fight of their lives because they undersample Republicans all the time. This is history. This is just how it is. It's always been that way. I'm not saying it's always going to be that way, but as it sits right now, if as a conservative political type of guy, I'm telling you, +4 right now. Wow, that is really, really low.
we can spike that ball in the end zone. But the numbers at this point say, hold on just a minute. Yes, you're on your way to a congressional majority, but it's still a long time. And with numbers like this, considerably weaker than historically speaking, it might be a tougher road to hoe than normally.
Well, especially if you see that change from October.
Yeah, if you see, when you see your base going a 28-point shift, and when you see numbers like this, you see this overall.
A lot can change.
A lot.
55 points down overall, 61 points down by independents, 28-point drop in 1 month. This just goes to show you how politically divided we are here in the United States right now. And anybody who says they know what's going to happen and they've got this all figured out, we used to call it doped out in the Air Force. I would say they are not being honest and truthful with you. Look at Benny Johnson, or Benny Thompson is not Ben Johnson, not Benny Johnson. Benny Thompson is going to have a Democrat challenger. He's been there for so long. I genuinely think the populace out there in the United States, those of us who are in the middle and have common sense, are just tired of it. Of course, you will have those who are just blindly following whatever political ideology they have, and they won't figure it out. But hey, that's just the way it is. When we get back in the next hour, we are going to talk about the consumer price index. We're going to talk about Trump's speech. We've got to talk about Dan Bongino leaving, and much, much more. Stay tuned, everybody. We'll be right back. We are back for hour 2 of the Andrew Gosser Show right here on 103.9 WYAB. It is Thursday, the 18th of December, 2025, and we are streaming on Rumble, and we are streaming on X, and we are streaming on YouTube, and we are streaming at WYAB.com. Really appreciate all the followers over on X. If you want to give me a follow, you can. It's at Andrew Gosser, AndrewGasser. Want to be part of the show today? I see people starting to call in. I'll get to you here in a minute. 601-879-0002. The text line is open at 601-879-5060. And the mission here at the Andrew Gosser Show is standard. We are here to equip the saints. Who are the saints? Y'all are the saints. And a discerning heart seeks knowledge, but the mouths of fools feed on folly. And there are a lot of people looking kind of foolish today. Some of these people ran out and started saying they knew what Trump was going to say on his speech. They didn't. Let's take this phone call. Go ahead. You're on the air.
What's up, Andy?
Hey, man. How's it going, my friend?
All right, all right. You know what I like about your and Clay's show is you guys take questions, comments, and whatever about the issues of the day. But this old boy that follows Clay before you is wearing Trump out. And, of course, no calls, no questions, no recounts, whatever. Some dude that's doing a podcast out of Maryland, is wearing him out.
Well, you want?
I mean, I don't. Whew.
It's one of those things where, what I found out with people who are really having a severe case of TDS is they will sit there and they will throw the Molotov cocktails and the snowballs at you. But when it comes to actually having civil discourse, it doesn't happen with the left. And I'm not trying to be hateful, but just look, we have so many examples. Example 1A is Charlie Kirk. They cannot handle the civil debate that's going on. And look, there are things that I have problems with what President Trump's doing. But on the totality, I have to say, I've got Kamala and I've got President Trump. Which one am I taking? And that's where I'll go. And then where we have those disagreements, I'll talk about it. What's your thought about what Trump is doing with the speech?
Well, just a view from 30,000 feet.
Yep.
This old guy that's on the previous show, and I'll leave this one alone. He claims to be a moderate. He claims to be down the middle of the road, but he sounds like a logically sound individual, but he's wearing Trump's butt out.
Yeah, he is.
My observation for today is this. If you get a phone call as some type of corporate individual and they tell you, we're about to build a huge office in Paris and you and your family are going to move there. We're going to set you up with a home and get you settled in over there. We're going to do that probably next year. It's time for you to learn to speak what?
French.
No. Not in the United States of America. You come here, you're speaking Swahili. You elect an individual to represent you that is speaking to you in your foreign tongue. And you've got mayors in Minnesota that are speaking the language that nobody here, except for those individuals who were moved here, can understand. What the Fred?
Yep. Hey, that was a good catch right there. I tell you what, it's not just Minnesota. It's Dearborn. It's Maine. Can you believe it that they've got like a massive enclave in Maine, and it's everywhere. It's here in Mississippi. It's not as evident or prevalent yet, but that's because I feel we're like a really strong faith-based community, and we tend to take things a little bit more seriously when it comes to threats and stuff like that. But brother, I can't tell you other than to say that we as Americans have been living high on the hog since about 1945, and it's going to get a little bit rough. You know, I really believe that in my heart.
Well, I want to tell you, I came up with a new term. I'm so tired of hearing Islamophobic.
Mhm.
How about this? How about Christophobic? How about that? There's a
Wow.
bunch of that are Christophobic. We've got elected representatives in this state who are Christophobic. Roger Wicker's one of them. And I
Wow.
hope you would get some of these folks out of here because we're so afraid we're going to offend somebody. Hey, dude, you're in the United States. You need to assimilate here. If you're on the team, then learn the playbook and let's play. But if you're not on the team, take your sport and get the heck out of here because this is the United States, not the assimilation of whatever diverse individual group you belong to, because you're not supposed to change us. I guarantee you, those original people that came through in New York that were speaking other languages. I watched Gene Simmons the other day. He talked about how his father was a Holocaust survivor,
Yes.
and how he had to stop speaking like his father did because he wanted to be successful here, and he was. But you've got to learn English. You've got to learn to play the game, and you've got to assimilate, not separate. So watch out for those Christophobic people out there. Thank you, brother.
Hey, dude, that was an awesome call. We have now had a new term defined here on the Andrew Gosser Show: Christophobic. I wrote it down. I'm genuinely going to put that into my lexicon and start talking about that because I genuinely feel that we are turning away from what got us here, which was the Puritans who came over here and settled the country. We've talked about that. We know that 9 out of the 13 original colonies, you had to have declarations of faith. It was just to run for office. We are completely forgetting our history, and those who forget their history are doomed to repeat it. But I think I've got a few quotes here from President Trump. I got to see if I can find it. Actually, I just have these points written down. The first one I want to talk about is the inflation, because inflation is something that is affecting us all. And today they came out with the new consumer price index numbers, and people are absolutely stumped by it. Nobody was expecting this. CNBC, covering the market for a long time, they lean left, but they do usually call the numbers like they see them. And this is dangerous because whenever you are reading information live for the first time and you don't kind of know what's coming, sometimes you get startled. Sometimes you get taken off guard. And this is what happened to CNBC. Listen to this.
The number of the morning, the CPI, maybe coming in a little bit better than expected. 2.7%, a little light here. I'm just reading the headlines here. Year over year, 2.7. Ex-food and energy core, 2.6. So 0.4 off. That is a very good number here. And it really, I have not looked at the internals. I'll look at them now, but it suggests that the internals are good as well. Let's see, year over year, over the last 12 months. There is no month to month, but some guys will be able to calculate. Seasonally adjusted index for all items less food and energy rose 0.2% over the 2 months. So correct my math here, Michael Santoli, but 0.2 divided by 2 is 0.1.
Yeah.
So therefore, that's a very, very low monthly rate here. The index for shelter increase, so you did get a really nice decline in shelter, which was 0.2. And so that was 0.1 per month. The number.
And you can see that everybody was preparing for a much higher number. And the thing about it is, and this goes right into Trump's speech where he was talking about inflation. And there's an amazing graph that shows how inflation was basically right where it is now, incredibly low. And then you look when Biden was president, especially in the beginning, it just shot up. It's like a bunch of drunken sailors. No, they're not a bunch of drunken sailors because drunken sailors earn their money. These politicians just spent foolishly. very foolishly. And the thing about it is we got to pay down our national debt. So people are all excited about some of the refunds and stuff that are coming. I'm not sure I feel that same way. I think, as we all know, Trump is the master of the art of the deal, and the 1776 military stipend that's going out to everybody. That's going to be well received by everybody in the military, uh, especially the lower ranking troops. I mean, 700 or $1,776. That's gonna almost double a E1's pay, a recruit's pay. That's gonna be huge. Man, if I was getting there, I'd be like, man, can I ship right now? Well, it's actually too late. If you're not in, I don't think you're gonna get it, because President Trump last night in his speech said that the checks were already cut and on the way. And I don't know how other people feel about it, but I'm looking at all of these other initiatives that were in the big beautiful bill. I think it's great that people who are on Social Security don't have to necessarily pay taxes on that. But there is so much other stuff. It's almost like we refuse to cut taxes. We are not taxes. We refuse to cut spending, and we have to. You cannot tax yourself out of the situation we're in. He talked about Somalia, and he talked about the $8 billion that has been stolen. We had Dr. Patricia Williams on the show yesterday from Minnesota talking about how it is impacting them locally. And if it's happening in Minnesota, I guarantee you it's happening in other places too. We just haven't found it yet. And we need to. There are so many commentaries out there that are talking about Trump's speech. The one thing I would say is people like Tucker Carlson, people like Benny Johnson, who sometimes get fed little nuggets of information. I genuinely think that some of those nuggets were released to see if they were going to open their mouth before President Trump did. And people who know me, yeah, one of my pastors moved back to Louisiana. He said, when Andy keeps his mouth shut, he keeps his mouth shut. And sometimes people tell you stuff because, one, they want your honest opinion, but sometimes they might tell you something to see if you're going to blab your mouth. And it happened. And I love Tucker. I support Tucker, but I think he might have felt for the rope-a-dope there. Last thing I want to talk about, gasoline in Florida, $1.97. You know, Mississippi, we need to lower our gasoline prices too. And it was interesting because in one of the groups that I follow, they were complaining how gas was so expensive in Clinton, but if they went to Madison or they went to Brandon, it was a lot cheaper. And people have to realize that the gasoline is taxed federally, then it's taxed at the state level, then it's taxed at the county level, and then it's taxed at the municipal level. So there are all sorts of people who claw their fingers into that gasoline tax revenue because they need to get their cut. And so if you're in Hinds County, you might see it a little bit more expensive. I genuinely go to the Sam's Club right there in Pearl, or the Sam's Club in Madison is really decent too. I know you got to pay an annual membership of $100, but it to me, it's worth it. When we get back, we have so much more to talk about. We've got to talk about Dan Bongino, and we've got to talk about what's happening with the Goon Squad victim, who is once again in jail without bail. You are listening to the Andrew Gosser Show right here on 103.9. We will be right back. there's something to be said about what is going on with. There's something to be said what's going on with the FBI and these street agents. And we have to make sure that we're paying attention to that. If we don't, then we're going to be in trouble. We will be in trouble. So I'm completely behind Dan Bongino leaving the FBI. I think Chris Hinkle's article is or post that I just retweeted is absolutely fantastic. And it's definitely worth the read. We're going to take a quick commercial break. We will be right back. And you are listening to the Andrew Gosser Show right here on 103.9 WYAB. And there's just stories breaking left and right. But this one, there's actually three of them, but we're going to start with this one. Texas Republicans launched Sharia Free America Caucus aimed at defending Western civilization. And it's being led by Keith Self and Chip Roy. And I genuinely hope that Trent Kelly, Congressman Michael Guest, Congressman Mike Easel, and it's Congressman Trent Kelly, and even Congressman Benny Thompson all start joining this caucus. And we all start working together to make this happen. Because just like our friend who called in at the beginning of the second hour said, if you move to France, you learn to speak French. If you move to Italy, you learn to speak Italian. If you move to America, you expect America to acquiesce for you, and that's not what needs to happen. Representatives Keith Self and Chip Roy of Texas aim to ban foreign nationals who adhere to Sharia law from entering the United States. That's a great first step. But then if we go back, all these people who are here now who are trying to enact Sharia law, and I don't like watching some of the stuff that's being posted on X from Texas, but if you look at what's going on in Epic City, it is an absolute, I'm not going to call it a war zone, but it really looks crazy. You just got all sorts of madness over there, and you wouldn't even believe it if you saw it. You wouldn't even believe it if you saw it. A pair of conservative lawmakers is launching a new group in the House of Representatives to protect Western civilization in the United States. Anytime you go into a fight, you can bring as many friends as you can. I'm a military guy, self-told Fox News. So we need to build this caucus now so that we can start educating the American people to the dangers of Sharia law. We should be having this education starting in grade 1 and all the way through. Because and the people who are going to fight this the most are the ones who are going to be hurt the most. Your LGBTQ kids, your people who are experiencing gender dysphoria. Islam, it comes for you, and if you actually go out there and study it, and I beg and I plead with all of you to do your own research to start looking at this. Your eyes will pop out of your skull. The caucus also has support from the Senate from Senator Tommy Tuberville, who Self said he hoped would help push some of the legislative goals forward in both chambers. And it is difficult to get anything pushed through. Brother Dogfish saying Benny Thompson needs to be perp walked. Well, I would like to see a lot of politicians get perp walked, from Nancy Pelosi to Benny Thompson, and there are others out there too who deserve to face justice for using their station as a congressman or a senator to make a lot of money. I think this is a great start. Maybe we could do something like this here in Mississippi. That is a great idea. And I'm grateful for all of my posters who remind me when I don't post a story. There you go. Next story I want to talk about. This one will blow your mind. Japanese woman marries an AI groom created by ChatGPT. And you look at this, and it's got a picture of her in a gown looking at a computer screen, and my goodness gracious. This is what our kids are up against. And it just says that earlier this year, Yurina Nokaguchi, 32, wow, I actually got that right, walked down the aisle to wed Loon Klaus Vendur, an AI-created version of a video game character in a wedding hall in Western Japan where she wore a white gown and tiara. Oh, how sad is that? Wearing AR smart glasses, Noguchi faced Vendur on a smartphone display and exchanged rings while somebody read the vows. It, ladies and gentlemen, AI is coming, and this woman is completely trapped in a world of AI. And it's not so much that people are trying to get into the AI world, it's the AI world trying to get into reality. And when we see things like this, when is this going to start happening here in the United States? And I'm not saying that they're going to get the legal benefits and all that, but my gosh, it's almost as if we are surrendering to our own flesh and completely ignoring reality. I'll tell you what, that is something. When I looked at that, I was just beside myself. And here's the last story before we head to the break. And we've documented the distrust for YouTube, Alphabet. YouTube announces intention to withdraw data from Billboard charts. And what does this mean? That YouTube in the future is going to be able to just start wiping out human creators and go ahead and just do what they want to do. They'll get rid of the human creators. They'll start putting this AI slop out there. YouTube announced that on December 17th that it will stop providing streaming data for Billboard charts starting 16 January, which will affect charts dated January 31st and beyond. YouTube stated that this decision reflects how fans engage with music, particularly those without subscriptions. YouTube highlighted that streaming companies comprise 84% of the U.S. recorded music revenue and criticized the ongoing negotiations with Billboard. You know, it's almost like the Borg from Star Trek. It's just assimilating everything. It's going to end up really as we move away. And look, we are moving away from TV, right? You see ABC is hurting, CBS is hurting, NBC is hurting. Even the cable news networks are hurting. Everybody's going to streaming, whether that be something like Disney Plus, Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime, and other streaming networks. Everybody's focused there. They focus on places like YouTube and Rumble are the big two individual creator platforms, but there's other ones out there like Odyssey, a few other ones. But my point being is that if these stream and of course the podcasts like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, do not want to forget them. But you sit there and you see where the trend is going. It's just going to be easier and easier to manipulate the people, not just in America, but around the world. And people will say, Andy, the big three news networks back in the day manipulated the people. Yes, I get that. But the point is that when we don't have free competition out there, where we are continuing to pare things down as these corporations continue to absorb each other. Just like you've got this big conglomerate, Paramount, trying to buy Warner Brothers, and people don't necessarily want that to happen. Even though there's a better deal out there, they're trying to protect these niches. I think I said niches, but it's niches. And we are literally seeing more and more of this consolidation, and it's just not going to be good for the small time creators out there. It is something that we might not actually see the impact. We may never see it because it just slowly starts directing us in a new way. And I know this because so many of you have talked to me, called me, not on air, but just said, what is going on with YouTube? I don't get the same channels that used to be pushed to me. I have to actively go out and search them, even though I've got the notifications, bells turned on and all that stuff. It's happening. Last story here before we take the break. U.S. jobless claim applications fell by 13,000 last week as layoffs remain low. One of the things that President Trump, and I had this written down and I didn't talk about this, but President Trump talked about how the job creation in the United States over the last year has all been in the private sector. He said 100%. He might be right because so many people took those early retirements in the government, and I'm sure they hired some new people on, but it's still a net loss there in the government sector, and the private sector is continuing to grow, although it's not at the pace that maybe some would like. Weekly initial job claims fell by 13,000 to 224,000 for the week ending December 13, exceeding forecast of 200,000, the U.S. Labor Department reported. Departures of federal workers have driven October payroll losses after cutbacks by the Trump administration. The Labor Department also reported 4-week average claims rose to 217,500, while payroll revisions removed 33,000 jobs. So you can see that the government sector is continuing to lose jobs. The private sector is not adding enough to keep up with that. But that's what we want to happen. We want to shrink our government. We want to make sure that the private sector is employing those people. It's just a better way to make it happen. It's the way we need to go. You are listening to the Andrew Gosser Show right here on 103.9 WYAB. We will take our last break of the show. We will be right back. Oh, yeah. We were talking about all this stuff, and I didn't even get a chance to give my opinion on what happened here with this guy, Eddie Terrell Parker. What happened to him in Rankin County Jail shouldn't happen. We all agree with it. But shout out to Clay Edwards breaking this. And of course, Clay breaks stuff and he never gets the credit. You'll see everybody do it, but he was the one who broke this. And the big thing about it is that this guy got the golden ticket. Granted, no one would ever want to go through what he did, but he had the chance to really go out there, go around the nation, talk about how we need to make sure that we have accountability. He had a chance to be something much more because of the unfortunate circumstances that he went through. But he didn't. Instead, he got arrested for all sorts of narcotics violations, possession with intent to distribute, felon in possession of a firearm, and carrying a concealed weapon. I don't know how Clay got that information. Honestly, the thing about it is that Clay was right. And he went on this talk about culture rot. And it's not even a race culture rot issue. It's an American culture rot issue. People are given unfortunate circumstances, and they're given the chance to turn their lives around, and he didn't do that. And his life was already tough, but it's just going to be that much worse. He went from being in a jail in Mississippi to a jail in Louisiana. My goodness gracious. And of course, when I go to those news organizations that promote their own freedom or news integrity issues, the Mississippi Free Press and the Mississippi Today, are there any stories about that? Nope. Completely silent. Crickets. Not good. Ladies and gentlemen, we live in strange and trying times. And where this leads us, we can all look at it and say that the United States is in for a much more difficult time. But at the same time, we have the opportunity to make Mississippi a much better place. And for all of the quirks, idiosyncrasies, and problems that we do have here in Mississippi, we are so much better off. And I'm not saying that you just always keep thinking that the glass is half full. Sometimes you got to realize that the glass is half empty. But we are in such a better place than some of these other states and other countries. And we need to make sure that we hang on to that and take care of that. I will be back in 22 hours. I really appreciate everybody who listened to the show today. Take care, everybody. Be blessed.